Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me at Birds on the Niagara. I'm so glad to be here today and to talk to you about the important bird and biodiversity area. So a little bit about me. I'm the Ontario Important Bird and Biodiversity Area Coordinator at Birds Canada. I've always loved being out in nature. I'm kind of a new birder, but I always love going out in nature. That's why I like being part of Birds Canada, an organization that really does give back to nature. So I'm also an eBird nerd and can waste hours looking at eBird and other data and observations like iNaturalist. If you haven't checked either of those out, then you should. They're both really user friendly and you can learn a lot about nature with them. And then about this presentation, I hope that by the end, you'll know a little bit more about Birds Canada, about IBAs, and about the Niagara River Corridor, IBA specifically. So this is our Birds Canada's headquarters in Port Rowan. That's usually where I work. I'm not working there right now, but it's a great office and you can walk the trail. So if once things are safe, come visit us there. It's near Long Point in Port Rowan. And a little bit about Birds Canada. We're a non-for-profit, non-governmental charity, and our mission is to conserve wild birds through sound science, on-the-ground actions, innovative partnerships, public engagement, and science-based advocacy. So basically, we do everything we can to help conserve birds and their habitat, and we do this with the help of our diverse and passionate set of members and volunteers. We couldn't do it without them. So what is now Birds Canada started out as Long Point Bird Observatory in 1960. It's now the oldest, most productive bird observatory in the Western Hemisphere. And in 2017, we banded our millionth bird, which was a Tennessee warbler. So that's pretty cool. In the 90s, we became Bird Studies Canada and expanded our role to engage citizens in bird conservation. And more recently, we updated our logo and website to Birds Canada to better highlight the outreach and engagement and education work that we do. So we now have about 50 to 75 staff members, depending on the season. And we run 40-ish citizen science programs, including the IBA program, Christmas bird count, feeder watch, species at risk projects, breeding bird atlases, and more. So there's really something for everyone. So if anyone ever wants to get involved in birding in any capacity, you should check out our website. And through all those programs and more, we engage around or over 50,000 people across Canada. This weekend is also the Great Backyard Bird Count. So if you're interested in counting birds this weekend, you should go to the website here on the slide. So birds are a huge part of our landscape and the ecosystem, and they're one of the best indicators of ecosystem health and biodiversity. Also, 1 in 5 Canadians enjoys bird watching. So since you're already at a bird celebration, I guess that you at least like birds. So I probably don't have to work very hard to convince you why we should care about them, but I'll just go over a few quick things, important things that they do for us and the ecosystem. So they distribute seeds and they pollinate plants like the hummingbird. They control pests. They also have value as food for other species and habitat creators like woodpeckers, for example. Birds like the bald eagle also have important spiritual and cultural significance. And of course, millions of people simply enjoy hearing and seeing birds. In a recent Canadian nature survey, birdwatchers spent an average of 133 days a year birding. And in the US, in 2016, birdwatchers spent an estimated $39 billion. So there's obviously an economical benefit that birds bring us as well. I really like this graph taken from 2019 State of Canada's Birds report. It really highlights why we do what we do from kind of both the positive and negative sides. So they're really great recovery examples, such as raptors and waterfowl, which are really great examples of what can happen when science and decision makers and the community all work together. There are also a lot of species in decline here, unfortunately, like grassland birds and aerial insectivores. And those species in Canada and globally need a voice. So that is why we do what we do. This is just from our website. It's the top 6 ways to help birds. So if you want to learn more details about any of those, you can check it out on our website. And now just a bit about the important bird and biodiversity areas program that I run in Ontario here. So IBAs are a suite of designated sites, which are part of a global program. And our main goals are to identify those sites, monitor them for population trends, and conserve them when possible, all with help from community members, of course. IBAs are non-governmental and non-regulatory, meaning that they are not recognized as protected lands by law in Canada. They have huge size ranges. They can vary from tiny patches of habitat to large tracts of land or water. And they're on any type of land, including urban, rural, private, public, and also sometimes they overlap with parks and wildlife management areas or other formal means of protection. Unfortunately, in Canada, over half of our IBAs have no protection whatsoever. So it's just another reason to really care about these important spots for birds and other biodiversity. A little bit about the science behind how we choose IBAs. In Canada, we use 2 criteria, which are for species at risk and for large congregations of birds. So they qualify by meeting a minimum number of birds or a percentage of birds of the population. So an example of a species at risk here in Ontario is a Louisiana water thrush. The species is listed under the Species at Risk Act as threatened in Canada, and there are around 10 forested IBAs in Ontario that have habitat for these at-risk birds. The other criteria we use is for congregation. So this is when 1% or more of a population uses a site for part of its life cycle for wintering, staging, or breeding, for example. Several IBAs are designated for the huge numbers of ducks and gulls and shorebirds that depend on the habitat, including the Niagara River. So other types of habitat that are home to IBAs are grasslands, like the Napanee Limestone Plain and Carden Alvar IBAs here in Ontario, which are almost 100% of the eastern loggerhead shrike population breed. Globally, there's around 12,000 sites in 200 countries, which makes IBAs the largest global network of important sites for birds and biodiversity. This includes terrestrial and freshwater and marine sites. So here's a quick snapshot of the around 600 Canadian IBAs, mostly coastal sites or interior wetland sites, but a few for forest sites for birds at risk as well. So since 2016, the IUCN has been working on the Key Biodiversity Areas program, which is a program for all biodiversity under one roof for the first time. And we're really excited about this program here in Canada, and we hope it can really bolster all of the amazing conservation work that is already happening at IBAs. At Birds Canada, our team has been focusing on seeing which IBAs will qualify to become KBAs. So you can check out this story map to learn a little bit more about the program and to see 2 really amazing sites in Canada. And before I go on, I just want to give a shout out to all the amazing volunteers that help with not only the IBA program, but other Birds Canada programs like the Christmas bird count and marsh monitoring. Bob and Jean are in this photo. They organize every single year. They organize 3 IBA counts for gulls along the Niagara River, and they take part in multiple Birds Canada programs, but also most volunteers do even more volunteering outside of Birds Canada. So nothing really would get done in these IBAs without the push and the passion from all the amazing people and all the conservation efforts that you guys work on. So thank you all for doing the amazing work you do. So here's a more zoomed in look at some of the IBAs in the Niagara region. The west end of Lake Ontario IBA is triggered for overwintering waterfowl. The Beamer Conservation Area for migrating raptors. 12 Mile Creek and Point Abinell are for forest habitat. And then, of course, the Niagara River Corridor for gulls and waterfowl. So a bit about the Niagara River IBA. It extends 60 kilometers from Lake Erie to Lake Ontario, and it also extends along the river into both the Canadian and the US sides, and was the first IBA to be designated by binational partners. The primary reason it's an IBA is the astounding number of gulls and waterfowl that depend on the river in the fall and the early winter. So 19 species have been observed in the IBA. I'm sure you've listened to Justin Peters' talk already, all about gulls and the amazing gulls that you can see along the river. It's really cool. There's like the smallest gull in the world called the little gull, all the way up to the biggest gull in the world called the great black-backed gull. All of them can be seen, and in between here in the Niagara region. So it's kind of really amazing. Some threats to the IBA are pollution, urban development pressures, which is why conserving dispersed green spaces and expanding natural habitat along the shoreline is so important right now. This IBA is really complex due to the many players, such as the multiple municipalities up and down the river, tourism companies, nature clubs, the Parks Commission, and the Conservation Authority. However, most of those groups are working together towards similar conservation goals. And they always need help. So if you are interested in any way in conservation efforts along the Niagara River corridor, let me know and I will find you the right person to talk to. So now I'm going to take you on a little aerial tour of the IBA through the eyes of this bird here in the picture. So pretend that I am this bird for the rest of the presentation. I'm a very special bird to this IBA, and I'm called the Bonaparte's gull. So the Niagara River corridor is really important for us Bonaparte's gulls. In the fall and the winter, up to 25% of our global population is estimated to pass through the IBA. So that's almost 100,000 of us potentially using the river every year. That's a lot. A bit about me: during migration, you can basically find me over any open water, as long as there's small fish for me to dive and eat. So you can often see us in large social flocks migrating, and we're even coordinated enough to forage for fish in large flocks. I know, it's impressive, I know. I'm also very unique as I nest in the boreal forest up in trees, unlike any other gull. Also, I'm a pretty tiny gull, which makes me very, very cute. So there's this website called eBird where people are constantly recording sightings of us. And at most of the sites that I tell you about today, there are always birders looking out at the river or lake, enjoying the gulls and ducks, or hoping to spot something a little bit more rare. All their counting is a bit fanatical, if you ask me, but hey, they made this beautiful map of our range. So I'm just going to show you that. As you can see, I overwinter in very dense patches in the south. Then I move through the northern states in Canada for migration, and then really spread out and breed way up in the boreal forest. I'll just play that again. So now let's talk about this wonderful place called the Niagara River. So after flying east over the beautiful Waverly Woods, which I heard there was a really great presentation on saving these woods yesterday, I come up to a river. So this is the Niagara River. I know it very well, and I know that it has open water and it is super fishy. So I'm going to fly up it. I look down at the mouth of the river and I see lots and lots of ducks. One year, there were 30,000 greater scaup counted on the river in one day, many at this spot here. It looks like there's a few birders here at the boat launch and at the parking lots before the Peace Bridge, taking advantage of an easy spot to look out at the lakes, out at the lake for gulls and ducks. So next, I'm going to fly to Frenchman's Creek. It's a great spot for us Bonaparte's gulls. This is a key wetland along the river, which there are very few left. I heard Niagara Parks Commission is planning some coastal wetland work here, so maybe it'll look a little bit different by next winter. And you can see great egrets, great blue herons, black-crowned night herons, and common terns. Next, I'm going to fly past this big island called Grand Island. So from Grand Island to the Niagara Parks Marina in Canada, there's not many birding spots, but at the marina, there are lots of ducks and good stops, including a forest and a parking lot that are good areas for viewing swans, and a great place for seeing winter ducks like common goldeneye and canvasbacks. Next, I'll fly to Navy Island. Navy Island is one spot that you can now see bald eagles on the Niagara River. So in fact, around 10 years ago, they built a nest, and for the first time in 50 years, they bred on the Niagara River. Since then, there's been a new bald eagle nest in the Niagara around every year. And so they're not rare anymore, which is a great story for them. It's something that I'm not excited about because they eat ducks and other birds. So there's a lot of ducks and fish for them to feed on, but you never know. Next, I'll fly over the gates. So I'm flying past the gates, which is getting really close to the falls. There are so many gulls here, especially herring gulls and cormorants on the pier. Herring gulls can be found here along the river in amazing numbers. So the peak count was 50,000 of them in one day. This is over 10% of their North American population counted in one spot. So think of how many of them must be here in one whole season. I'm going to take a little side trip now. So today I feel like taking the scenic route. So I'm going to fly over Dufferin Islands. This is a really beautiful wetland, and by the looks of it, you can get right out of your car and see wild birds, including ducks right at the pond and birds flitting in the trees near the bridge. Really, anyone can bird here. But I always see people feeding ducks here, so I would recommend against that, especially feeding them white bread. It's not very good for them. So I finally make it to the falls. And I fly around a bit because who doesn't want to look at these beautiful, beautiful falls? Above and below the falls are great for white-winged gulls like the Iceland and glaucous gulls and lesser blackback gulls. It's also a great place for, you guessed it, me, the Bonaparte's gull. It's very flat, so you can see really far, which I imagine is good for birders trying to count hundreds of gulls that are moving around. If I fly over Goat Island in the middle there in the summer, I can see black-crowned night heron and great egret nests there as well. So next is my favorite spot, the Whirlpool. The Whirlpool is especially good for Bonaparte's gulls. This is where I eat loads of small fish during migration. There's also a great place to practice your gull skills to see if you can spot any odd, rare gulls like Sabines or black-headed gulls. So what I'm flying over next on my way to the Adam Beck generating station is such an ecologically important part of this river. It's part of the Niagara Gorge, and it's the spot for people who want to find interesting plants, animals, and other nature. The Niagara River IBA has more than 40 at-risk species, including many plants, amphibians, insects, and fish. The 15-kilometer gorge downstream from the falls holds one of the highest concentrations of rare plant species in Ontario, and includes plants like the deerberry, butternut, and the whitewood aster, which is in this photo. So a great place to go visit is the Niagara Glen, which there are trails to get down into the gorge and check out all the beautiful nature there. But be sure to be careful and respectful as possible because it's a bit sensitive to disturbance. So this is the Adam Beck generating station. And like the Whirlpool, you're looking down on us gulls, so you need some really good binoculars to identify us. This spot is very good for gulls, but is especially amazing for the northern white-winged gulls like the glaucous gull pictured here. So next I'm going to the Queenston Sand Docks where I see a little bit of duck action. So this is a really easily accessible place to bird from. Here, there is a great spot to see us, the Bonaparte gulls again, and little gulls mixed in with the flock, and also long-tailed ducks, which is the duck in this picture. And listen out for the long-tailed duck's call. It is very beautiful. So now I make a large fly to the last point in the river, and I get to the mouth of Lake Ontario. So my last part of the day is spent here at the mouth of the river, eating one last time. There are a few spots to look out at the river from. So Navy Hall has great views of some ducks, but the best spot is Queen's Royal Park. Here you can see red-throated loons in good numbers, but the most spectacular thing to do, in my humble opinion, is to watch us Bonaparte gulls at the end of the day in the winter. So in a flock, we travel out to the lake to roost for the night and fly right over you. It's a great place to count birds or just sit back and enjoy the show. So ends my tour of one of the most special places in Canada. I hope you learned a bit and wish me luck as I make my way south to the winter somewhere warmer or north to breed in the boreal forest. Thank you for listening. So hope you liked that excursion from the amazing Bonaparte gull, and thanks for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, let me know. My contact info is here. Feel free to reach out. Thanks for having me on the Birds of the Niagara.